Good morning. Welcome to the actually first episode of DataMonsterTV, where we broadcast epic shit. Maybe you need to cut this out, I'm sorry. My name is Andreas Walter from Sapedon Quality Lab, specializing among other things in security, and I have three famous guests here, which I will ask to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Nico Neugebauer. I work at OISH22 and I do a lot of epic stuff.
Hello, and my name is Joachim Hammer. I work at Microsoft. I'm in the SQL team, and I work in security.
And hello, my name is Tobiasz Koprowski. I'm working for Shadowland Consulting, consulting and training services in the UK.
Thank you for this understatement, Joachim. I don't know why. Maybe you don't want us to ask you hard questions because you're not just working in the security team. You are actually the chief of the team, right?
Well, I'm in the program management side of security. That's correct, yes.
All right. So the topic of today's data channel or Data Monster TV is basically the two hottest developments in security, and the one that started beginning of this year. Despite of the coldness in Germany, there was a meltdown. Meltdown Inspector, that's the common names for three vulnerabilities that were published in January and made a lot of fuss in the community of IT. So I would like to know from you, from your experience, how are customers taking it? Are they patching or are they ignoring it? What do you say, Nico?
So I think that most of the customers have understood that it was a security problem. Most of them were worried that the Microsoft will provide them the way to patch their servers to feel more secure, and Microsoft successfully did it, providing them the patches and the way to make their servers more secure. But the other question would be what is the percentage of the customers that went all the way through configuring and making their servers secure and keeping them secure, not rolling it back. That's the view that one gets in the field.
Do you have any percentage from your experience?
I would rather not go to the percentage of the real customers.
I see. How about you?
From my perspective, majority of the clients in the UK, they updating their systems. They apply some patches for Meltdown Inspector. But on the other ways, there is a very, very big lack of education. I had a training a couple weeks ago for one of the big company in the UK, and we discussed with the DBAs about the security, and they have no idea what is the Meltdown Spectre. They have no idea about the WannaCry. They have no idea about the current security vulnerabilities which are around us, around our companies. In that case, because they don't know that simple, let's say, simple things that they even not got notification about that, they cannot simply prepare machines, prepare the systems to be to work against that vulnerabilities. So I think that the lack of education, we discussed 2 years ago here in Darmstadt about the problem with the educating of the IT professionals, and this problem is still happening.
I see. So as we hear, there are actually quite a lot customers patching, but by far not enough, because the message really should be everybody out there should patch, everybody. There's another aspect to it though. The mitigations that mitigate against the attack, for example, the indirect branch prediction, they are known, or there are rumors that they have some performance impact. Have you heard of that from your customer experience?
So yes, and actually I have a funny story to tell. But before that, I just need to, because I think Tobias is right about the education, we need to mention that these are the Meltdown and Spectre, these are the CPU problems, not the software problems, not the operating system or database level problems. So the funny story is that there is a customer who mentioned that around the 6th or 7th of January, their server got a less performance. And they said that's because the patches that were applied for Meltdown and Spectre. And once we have had the opportunity to take a look at the server, we noticed that the patches were not installed yet. And so they were successfully pointing to those problems without having actually applied patches for those problems.
The microphone is going back and forth, so I figure I'll take a turn too. Thank you, Nico, for actually mentioning. I just want to say a couple of things. It is a hardware problem, of course. Microsoft is very aware of the impact on customers. As to the education, we have a couple KB articles. There's one from the Windows Server group. There's also one from the SQL Server team. I really encourage the audience to take a look at them. I think, Andreas, you're going to publish a link at the end of this broadcast. And so just to reiterate again, it's a very complicated issue. It involves the collaboration of the chip manufacturers, OEMs, partners, Microsoft, a whole bunch of folks, and hence the patching is also complicated. So it's not just, you don't take one patch, you do it, you're done. So it is a little bit painful, we're all aware of it. And as far as the performance is concerned, our guidance is the mileage is going to vary based on your workload, based on, and as Nico said, the hardware you're running on, versions of server and so forth. So from my perspective, from the SQL team, our guidance is patching, go and run your workloads, test it out, and then if you have any kind of issues, come and contact us. And we've been working one-on-one with a whole bunch of customers already on their performance issues, on their patching. And that's, I think, is the way to go, rather than putting out some wholesale sort of recommendation as far as numbers are concerned. This is what you can expect. So that's my message to the audience here. And yeah, so I'll hand it over. Maybe you want to say a couple more things.
Yeah, I remember that when the Spectre and Meltdown came, and for a couple of days, it was a little bit panic. Nothing happened because the patches will not be ready, of course, because even it is a 0 day, but it's not really easy to make that patches for hardware. And I remember that I ran the PowerShell commandlets. It's a speculation. The name of that commandlet is speculation. It's very, very nice commandlet in PowerShell. When you can check how much your systems, physical hardware, is ready against to fight with this Meltdown Spectre. And I ran the updates literally 5 times. One of the updates was from Microsoft, one was from Intel, one was from Dell, and I waited a couple of days until I remember the first time when I ran this commandlet, it was about 7th of January, and the last update I got on the 13th of January, so a couple days later. That means that process for updating, for patching against that problem is not very easy. Sometimes it's a couple of steps. Sometimes we can decide, okay, from the business perspective, we will wait for availability of the full patches, but maybe sometimes we have to patch partially for that one and partially for that one, which doubling time for patches, which is a really, really big problem from the business perspective. If the clients always, as Alamos always said, we need to be 24 hours per 7 available.
Yeah, thank you, Tobias. Good point, the patching itself. Is there maybe a rule for or guidance for customers that you can say, is there a difference in systems? Like, do you need to patch? What's the rule? Does really everybody need to patch? How about Azure on-prem? Is there a slight, easy rule to remember?
I think that the easiest way is to be updated with the informations from the companies, from the providers, from Microsoft, from system operators, from software operators, from hardware operators about, for example, like that one. Be updated, that means not only security team in the companies should know about this. The DBA, we changed a couple years ago, we start to change the role of the DBAs. We are not the typical DBA, we are more architects now. So that means we need to find some time to reading about that security issues which could affect our systems, and we need to be more open for different parts of our environment, not only for the SQL Server and data processing and so on, but as well for the security, because maybe our security team, which I discovered a couple of times, maybe our security team doesn't know exactly what we are doing with our databases. So they don't understand our products which we understand as a DBA or BI analyst and so on and so on. That means they cannot find simple way how to be prepared against Meltdown or Spectre, how to patching this, because they don't know how we use it.
And of course, to your question, Azure, there's nothing to patch. Microsoft handles the patching for you guys. So I think in terms of Azure SQL DB, storage, DW, all those services, there's nothing for customers to do at this point.
So I think regarding the patching, because it will be each customer's decision, it's their own decision if to activate and face the potential risk of losing some of their performance. I think it will go to the bottom line. Do you want to feel safe or not?
All right. Yeah. So the basic rule is Azure is patched by Microsoft. Your own system really needs to be patched unless you are 100% sure that there is no external code running on it, no unchecked code, and the machine is locked down itself. So how many of those machines exist? Not so many. That means you need to patch. All right. With that, I think we can step over to the next hot topic here in Europe. That's the activation of the GDPR starting in May. I would like to know what's the stake of the customers. Do they, or especially from the DBA side, are people changing procedures? What do you see happening?
I can give you some of the story from last 2 weeks. I was in Auckland 2 weeks ago. Auckland is of course in New Zealand, and I checked out from the hotel, and the hotel receptionist asked me, "Okay, you are the citizen of the Europe, right?" Yes. So we have a GDPR, and you have a GDPR, yes. So could you give me some advice how I can protect your data here in New Zealand, because we're now storing your data because you spent 2 nights in our hotel? And I was completely shocked, because we know about this in Europe, naturally, but that means the GDPR is not only for the Europe, it's for around the world. And even that hotel, which actually keep my data, because they use my credit card, they use my data for registering and so on, that means they need to be prepared, and they want to know how to be prepared for that GDPR.
From a Microsoft perspective, of course, GDPR hits us in 2 ways. It hits us as just like any other enterprise, because we're doing business with the EU. We have lots and lots of customers in the EU. So we've been busy for the last probably 9 to 12 months getting ready for GDPR internally. And that means we have to look at all our processes, all the data that we do collect, and contrary to some blog posts, we don't indiscriminately collect customer data. We are very careful about what we do, but anyways, we have privacy statements. We've updated our privacy statements, so we have been going through all the telemetry that we do collect to make sure that whatever is considered PII data is handled in the appropriate manner. For SQL Server, for example, we do collect telemetry that has to be investigated, and there everything is anonymized. We don't collect anything that's considered PII. In Azure, same thing. We have what we call a secure compliance boundary. We have our production servers where all the customer data resides, and so we have reviewed all the telemetry that comes out of the compliance boundary to make sure that doesn't violate any GDPR regulations. So we've been busy doing that. And then on the other hand, the second aspect for Microsoft for GDPR is, of course, we need to help our customers be GDPR compliant. And there we've been working on capabilities and tools that might help customers do the same thing. And Andreas and I have a session later this afternoon. We'll talk a little bit about what we do from a security perspective so that customers can meet the security aspects of GDPR. Although I do want to caution people, GDPR is not just about security. Actually, security is just a small aspect of it. It's really about data privacy and the handling of data, how enterprises handle data, and what they disclose about how they handle data. So there's a whole lot more that customers have to do than just rely on some features that SQL or some of the other tools provide. So I think the bottom line to me is that it's going to take a while. Enterprises have to be very diligent in reviewing their processes. They have to go and put training into place and so forth. And I encourage people to get started. And then, we will do our share in terms of providing some capabilities and some guidance documents and so forth to make sure we help customers on that road.
So one of the aspects very important for me of the GDPR, besides those that Tobias and Joachim already mentioned, is also concerns what we have talked before this recording about the data that is being backed up and stored outside of the databases. And it's a very interesting world, and I think it will. We are all in the fact we are waiting for 25th of May. Some of us with with more fear than the others, to find out what it really means. But in the meantime, it will be most probably a personal interpretation, personal of the company interpretation or their consultants, or how to prepare, how to make sure that when the customer requests and uses his right or her right to be forgotten, that the data is completely removed. And even in the case of the disaster, one of the old backups that is being accidentally restored by somebody in a rush will not put them back active into the system, and they will get spammed or whatsoever.
Thank you for your insights, especially also Joachim, about how Microsoft is handling and about this example. Yeah, this actually comes down to the point, we are waiting for the first trial, maybe first judgment. Then we will know for sure. There will not be one person, none of us here, who will say you need to do exactly that, and I guarantee you, you will not be in trouble. For that, you really need a lawyer. But despite of that, maybe you can, some of you mention some features that you need to look up that help you with implementing GDPR in terms of data privacy detection and protection itself. What features should you know as a DBA?
So I again use some of those cases. Not all of us, but a lot of us use that simple iPhones. That iPhones, as we know, is encrypted. We don't care about this. It's encrypted by default. And the same we should do with our data, because with the GDPR, of course, the problem will be when there will be the data breach and someone steal the data of the customers. That will be the very problems with that, fines and so on and so on, 10 millions, 12, 20 millions and so on and so on. But from my perspective, it's one of those advice. Encrypt everything, because even you will get the breach someday, because it's possible, of course. If your data will be encrypted, that data cannot be used by someone else. And you can use that encryptions directly in SQL Server, not only in the enterprise. In the standard, in the Express editions, we can use in Azure. Databases in Azure are encrypted by default. Storage in Azure is encrypted by default. We can simply manage this very, very easily. Even we don't know exactly how the encryption works, we can simply click the button and encrypt our data. The same we can do with the transmit data, with the always encrypted. We can use a lot of security features for that one. And from my perspective, if we are DBA and we don't have too much experience with the security, I think that Azure Security Center is absolutely great tool to show us what kind of vulnerabilities could be, how we should, what we could do, and why we should enable some security features inside Azure. If our company work with Office 365, it's even better, because in Office 365 we have a compliance manager, we have a lot of specific security test checking exactly for the GDPR, for do not allowing leaving the documents, for the classification of the documents and so on, and we can combine all of those together. So we can simply use the knowledge of a lot of people in the Microsoft, which works very, very hard all of the time to implement that services. Even we are not experts in the security, we can simply enable this, use this, make this analysis, and secure our data.
I think that's great advice, Tobias. I want to come back to sort of something that I feel is important, namely the classification of the data, the data handling, which I think on one hand you can say if you don't even store something, you don't need to encrypt it, there's no danger of getting this data getting into the wrong hands. So from my perspective, I think it comes back to customers have to worry about the data that they have already, that they've collected, and maybe revisit that and see if it's actually necessary, or is it even legal to collect that information? So that requires some sort of a data handling guideline that they set for themselves, where they go through the GDPR document and first of all understand what is actually considered PII data, which also is very important to know is much broader now. So the definition of what's PII under GDPR is much broader than what people think. And so go through this, and we have a tool now that's in preview called Data Discovery and Classification, and that might be a way to help organizations come up with what we've been done in Microsoft for a while now, is this inventorying of all the data that we collect, and go through it and see, are we allowed to collect it, do we even need it, and so forth. So I think that's a great tool that I would recommend people to go and look at. Nico, what do you have?
Oh, I would say not so eloquently, but I think that the data discovery process and the analysis of the discovery results, the tool that are in 17.5 SSMS, is a very good step in the right direction. And I'm really happy. I just wish that Microsoft would have gone this direction even earlier. but it's still right. Yeah. It's still the right time, and I think it's people here at the SQL conference should go to your session today to find out more about it. And there are already great blog posts, and we are all looking for the future updates of those services.
Yeah, thank you. Let me maybe close this topic with one excerpt from the GDPR. There's one line that goes through it in a lot of points, and that's state of the art. You need to use state of the art technologies. So SQL Server enabling us with very simply accessible security features also puts some pressure on you, because encryption is state of the art. It's easy, so there is not really an excuse to not use it. Even not being a lawyer, I know what state of the art can mean. So really, you should take a look at it. It's about education of your personnel to stay up to date, also in certain terms. Do you like to add something?
And one more thing, please remember about our behaviors, because as a humans, as a technician people, we love the databases, systems, operating systems, files, storages, and so on. But our users very, very often still keep very important information here on paper. That means, yeah, I know. That means the shredder is always close to the printer. Yes. Yeah. But we have a lot of data which we store outside our databases. That means our GDPR and our problems will not touch only the databases. They touch all of our data which we have, and many of that information we have directly inside on paper, not inside the systems.
Yeah, good point. And also don't forget that field called notes. There can be a lot of private information in notes. With that, could you please turn on the slide with the links? Because I have prepared 2 links for you, for the audience or for the viewers later on. The first link will be a short survey that I have put on my blog post, where I'm collecting voices of readers to just give us the vote on the status of patching for Meltdown and Spectre. That's the first link. The second link is the official guidance from Microsoft on the whole topic of Meltdown and Spectre. What's the official standpoint? So please go through that and act accordingly. Is that?
This will get updated frequently. So this is a living document that we update every so often.
Yeah, so Joachim said it's updated all the time. You see the current state of patch. You will see that Microsoft SQL Server up from version 2008 until 2017 is patched. There are patches available and so on. So with that, many thanks to my co-speakers here and to the audience and to the viewers. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the talks.